Hey there, welcome to episode 134 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I am your host, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo. We're recording this at 8:34 in the morning on Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. We do publish our episodes on Tuesdays, so good timing. Today's title and topic, enabling and encouraging. Hopefully you've heard those words on previous episodes of this audio program. You'll hear them again today. If you're not familiar with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, we are a 501c3 public charity, a Nevada nonprofit. We were formed in June of 2022. That's when we actually incorporated our nonprofit. We technically got started in January, but we are a actual Nevada nonprofit corporation. We got our determination, I think it was in October 2022. We renamed from Code for Vegas, which was how we formed, a reboot of the previously existing Code for Vegas brigade, kind of pre-brigade program, part of Code for America. So we reformed, rebooted as a standalone nonprofit entity, an independent organization. And so we are here today. Our purpose statement, well, I'll save that for later since it's the crux of today's episode. But we are a nonprofit, and we do aim for community elevation. So how could you go wrong? The Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program is a platform for us to talk about what we're trying to accomplish, how we're trying to accomplish it, some of the things that we're working on, some of the things we want to work on, and so on and so on and so on. So this episode 134, How Time Flies. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, and there are more places now, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes. The show notes contain a summary, which is, I think, one sentence today, and a few links. There are 4 typical links and 2 links for this episode. We'll get to those in a moment. So hopefully you are able to locate those links. You can click on them. Well, I'll run through them very quickly, but you are encouraged, since I have enabled you, to seek out those links and click on them. Summary of today's episode, thus, enable and encourage, 2 words which appear in our own purpose statement and which are easy to gloss over, perhaps. But I would argue that these are integral elements of any effort to cultivate a culture of innovation, which you may have heard we are in need of here in the greater Vegas area. We're in need not only of the culture of innovation, but the cultivation of same. And that's part of what we're trying to accomplish in our day-to-day. The links for today's episode, once again, the first 4 are the usual. Our activity homepage, innovateforvegas.org. That's been our original home base, our homepage for the masses. Always a work in progress. It is hosted on GitHub, so it's attached in one way or another to our various GitHub initiative repositories, and making those more visible to more people is part of the agenda for that particular website. You can check that out if you want. There is a link there to this audio program and to where else you might find it. The Innovate for Vegas Foundation website was a recent addition to our portfolio, innovateforvegas.foundation. So our activities, sort of the normal everyday website, innovateforvegas.org. That's Innovate, F-O-R, Vegas, no spaces, innovateforvegas.org. Innovateforvegas.foundation is aiming for the business side of things. Recall that we are a Nevada nonprofit corporation. We're a 501c3 public charity. We have to file our 990 tax return, which I will be doing very soon. Nothing very exciting. It's just a matter of logging in and filling out the postcard. We are in year 4, though, so hopefully year 4 will be a little bit more interesting. Fiscal year 4. I've already I think I talked about that last week, in fact, the money. So the Innovate for Vegas.foundation website is sort of the business side of the foundation. See how that works? Projectact.info. That's project-act.info. The hyphen is a key next to the 0 on most keyboards. That is our autonomous cohort tessellation initiative. It is open for collaboration. The website is super ugly right now. It is not the highest priority item on the list, but as we get that moving, we will invite anyone to participate who would like to. I think I've done an entire episode at least and other mentions previously, and we will do that again. Not the topic of today's episode, but the link is there. Similarly, agileforvolunteers.org, that's agile, AGILE, FOR, volunteers, VOLUNTEERS, Agile for Volunteers. .org. If you're familiar with Agile, it was written or created by and for software engineers, programmers. We're taking those first principles from Agile from 20 years ago or so and applying it to non-programmers, so civic volunteers, working on a variety of types of initiatives and component projects. And remember, they're volunteers, they're not full-time employees of a company. Very much a work in progress. But one of the principles we take very seriously is the notion of whole team participation. It's part of the enabling and encouraging part. For today's episode, there's a link to an article in Utah about an elementary school, the Jordan Elementary School, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm not looking at the article is open. I'm just not looking at it right now. Elementary makerspace. They call it an innovation lab. They're deploying an innovation lab for K through 12, not only at that elementary school, but for use by a variety of schools. Anybody can. I think they mentioned field trips and bringing students from other places. It's always difficult when you have a physical resource that is in one place. You got to get people to go out there. It can be done. So there's an article about that. That will figure into today's episode. And finally, a Wikipedia page, because you always got to have Wikipedia in there somewhere, about innovation, in case you're curious about that take. And do remember that Wikipedia is a great place to begin the search for information and knowledge. Rarely is it the place to end it. I will point out, before we get started, oftentimes, and including here, innovation includes implementation in the Wikipedia article. Why do we have them split out as I'm about to read our purpose statement? Ideation, innovation, implementation, one could argue that they're all kind of different facets of the same gem, and I would say you're probably correct. But ideation, innovation, implementation, calling now, and in fact, there's that fourth secret I, integration. Those are all kind of a part of a continuous process, but we call them out individually to underscore that they are all important and they're things that are often overlooked. The ideation phase, the blue sky, the brainstorming, the spitballing, if you like. I don't know if that still happens anymore, and we'd like to see more of that. Let's talk about possibilities before we start trying to be innovative. Let's identify the problem. Let's identify the things that people have tried. Let's look at some of the things that could be tried. And then we can start looking at innovation. Implementation is a separate thing. Oftentimes, I have heard people say, why don't we just use WordPress, for example? That's not so much innovation. Maybe some implementation, depending on what's actually involved. Really more of an integration step. So underscoring those three separate facets. Again, they all fit together, and you'll probably find often that innovation, which is different from invention, but there's an invention component in there. Anyway, something to ponder on another day. For today, first I want to remind you, see, I said I was going to do it. I may not have mentioned this recently, but our official purpose statement is to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. When we composed this purpose statement back in 2022, we were not imagining our impending name change, so we were still Code for Vegas Foundation. But it turns out this was somewhat prescient. No mention of coding or technology. There is so much more to it than that. Innovation can take many forms and can be the result of efforts by many types of people. Types is you can use that word any way you like. Backgrounds, interests, skill levels, different focus areas, the list goes on. So it's not merely coders, it's anyone who wants to volunteer their time to elevate a community, and that the direction, the path to getting there can take many directions, many twists, many turns. So we didn't want to limit ourselves to coding nor to civic tech. So yeah, we really do focus on civic volunteerism of all shapes and sizes. I may also have done an entire episode on the cultivation of innovation culture in the Greater Vegas area recently, which is something we are leaning into with our limited resources so far, and which is essential for establishing and maintaining a healthy and vibrant entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. This is a topic I actually focus on in greater detail on a different audio program. You may have heard of it, Cafe Genius Impresarios. So I don't want to promote my own stuff here too much, but we do focus on those things there. But Innovate for Vegas Foundation really looks for like those early days and enabling and encouraging, especially young people, to enter the innovation landscape and participate proactively. And if they can be a part of elevating communities in various ways, using their various skills and interests and so on, and if we can make sure that people are collaborating and doing it, so much the better. Community elevation, let us not forget that part, because this is the motivation to draw people out of their shells, so to speak, to provide a reason or a goal, and one that actually feeds back on itself. Not to mention leaving practical entries on a resume for future job searches, or maybe actual experience that leads to an entrepreneurial endeavor of some sort. Who knows? Anything is possible, or should be. So it's important to note, both enable and encourage. I am going to say something unpopular, maybe a bit glib. Having something labeled a maker space, installing 3D printers, posting on LinkedIn with a bunch of likes and comments. These are not quite what I'm talking about. Having the maker space as a start, we might even say this is a component of enabling our 3 I's, ideation, innovation, implementation. But is it sufficient to have a maker space? If we build it, they will come, according to a quote from the Field of Dreams movie. Okay, it's actually, if you build it, he will come, if we're going to be pedantic, if we're going for accuracy. And the movie is based on the book Shoeless Joe by W.P. Kinsella, in case you were wondering. I'm going to suggest that having a makerspace, which by the way needs more than 3D printers, but okay, let us begin there, could be called an enabler if people are aware of it and are able to make use of it. And most importantly, if they have a reason to do so. Let me edit this right here. Okay. This could be a need a person might have to make a repair or something, or maybe they have this idea that's been floating around. They want to try it out. That's a good one, by the way. What if I could do this? Or maybe they have had this idea floating around for a long time, and they finally get around to, I guess I can go down there. Maybe it's a class or a training to learn how to work with wood or metal, or to use machine tools or those 3D printers and more. It could be anything. Suppose for those who do not have the motivating factor to catalyze their pursuits, there were some real world initiatives as starting points. Maybe from a foundation, which might actually be practical enough and interesting enough to not only kick off some innovative thinking and action, but to sustain them. A little bit of time and effort on a regular basis aimed at real outcomes, maybe something of a game changer. This is the encouragement to make use of those tools and infrastructure, real activities with real goals and real outcomes that will make a real difference. This is the encouragement we have placed on the table. The enabling part, well, that takes more than just a makerspace, but we're a part of that as well. The greatest resource in an entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, believe it or not, is the upcoming generation of creative and innovative young people. Why? Because if we are lucky, they're watching the way the world works as they are going through their classes and learning what they're supposed to learn. But maybe they are taking some old advice, I will paraphrase from Mark Twain, not letting that classwork get in the way of their education. They might even be watching adults and shaking their heads, certainly making fun of their language. If we take a quick look at the Innovation Center, that innovation lab that was in the article, it's a more modern name for a makerspace, but a similar idea. We can see an example of focusing this enabling effort on younger creators. Remember, I myself suggest an age about around 12 years old, or 7th grade is a really good starting point. Here, they in Utah are enabling K through 12, the whole range. That's age 5 to 18. We can see that they are proactively establishing that capability and maybe even desire creative people have to turn a notion into something they can hold, show, and use, maybe give to others. This is how it begins. It would be a mistake to presume that a person at age, say 5, is not concocting some interesting machinations to solve the world's problems, achievable with a 3D printer and a scroll saw, or who knows what else. But for the sake of argument, let us suppose that those at the younger end of the age spectrum making use of this innovation space is about those making use of the innovation space, they are about making that fish tank accessory, as mentioned in the article, or similar personal projects, maybe something for a parent or a sibling, and so on. Whatever the reason to unleash creativity through the resource available in such a innovation space is one of the best ways to plant those seeds of innovation culture. So younger people may not be completely aware of their connection to their own future. Some are, who knows? But we then ask, what next? Well, practicality, of course, which hopefully is not too boring. It may be a bit of a challenge to suggest to a young person that they could be, they could consider pointing their creativity at solving some practical problems in their neighborhood or proximal community, maybe their school, maybe their neighborhood, physical neighborhood, maybe the places where they spend time otherwise. But once those seeds have been planted, once young people are enabled to turn ideas into those tangible things, I suppose they might be encouraged to look around at some other possibilities. Boring? Maybe. Unless connecting younger people with their surroundings early, maybe 7th grade, I don't know where I got that number, is one way to shine a light on possibility so that young creative innovators might say one day, hey, someone I know would have a better day if that thing was fixed. Okay, that is a simplification. I am not good at writing the inner monologue of others, but coupling the developed skills, not everything's code, and the enabled action leading up to this, a little typo here, leading up to this with the encouragement of reality. That is, complete that thought, right? Hey, someone I know would have a better day if that thing was fixed. And I think I could fix it, to complete that thought, is the beginning of an innovation culture. Ideally, along the way, each individual would have come across a situation where they needed a hand, whether physically lifting or moving something, figuring out the next step for their project, or generally advancing an endeavor to a next step with the help of others. Or more interesting and formative, collaborating on a longer timeline to accomplish more together than they could individually. The sum of the whole greater than the parts. No, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Let me get my quotes correct. Another important element in our innovation culture, which is under construction, is that collaboration, the value of working together. And it is, by the way, something that I've seen not being as strong as I hope it could be or will be someday. This is possibly because of the nature of education, which is very single student oriented. Initially, there was No Child Left Behind, but there are goals that have been set forth in education curriculum in public schools that I believe are aimed much more towards individual achievement. Tests count more than laboratory and collaboration efforts and so on, but that's a different discussion for a different day. The bottom line is collaboration is key, and it should be a part of any sort of innovation efforts in general, and it is for us. So where do we fit in? Speaking of, if I may repeat, our purpose statement to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. Ideally, as more people are looking around at what's around them, seeing what they could actually play a role in community elevation on a scale that they choose, that they could actually play a role. We are there to join them. Yes, join them. Well, they can join us too. It's semantics. We can all be in this together, which is our ultimate goal, is to participate communally in elevating our communities. And by the way, those communities don't have to be local. We make these clear. All of our initiatives are starting points, underscored by our Agile for Volunteers approach to whole team participation, of course. There's more to Agile for Volunteers than that, but whole team is a critical component. It is actually from the original Agile manifesto, but they are also only the beginning. Our initiatives as they are today, adding initiatives and component projects, whether to existing initiatives or to new initiatives, while probably not a mere snapping of the fingers, is one of our underlying goals, that others can participate in every aspect of what we are trying to accomplish, including defining what it is we're trying to accomplish. Co-creation with those around us, the customer in Agile parlance, but also inviting civic volunteers to join in on establishing new initiatives and modifying the ones we already have on an ongoing basis. to always add value to our surroundings, to elevate communities near and far. So in other words, you don't have to be in Vegas to innovate for Vegas, but similarly, everything we innovate here in Vegas for Vegas should be applicable to other places. And remember, even though these numbers are down 10%, 11% each month for the previous year, we do have a lot of people visiting from other places. And so ideally, when people find that, ooh, Vegas is a smart city, look at that. And some of the people enabling this are students, are young people, are people who actually live here, who are elevating their communities. I wonder if we could elevate ours. Probably. Everything we do is open source, by the way. There is a ton of work to do, though, so let us pause here to do just that. Today's episode is a little bit shorter than normal, which is fine. Keeping it brief, keeping it succinct, not something I want to do normally. So we'll catch you next week if you like to listen. Maybe before that if you want to take part. The road is long, and there's space on it for you. I was going to end with a story, but I will save that for next week. We're going to keep it brief. My clock says we're at 23 minutes, and that is pretty brief. Should I do a story? Nah. The bottom line is that young people can and should be enabled and encouraged to be innovative, to turn their ideas into action. Action? Yeah, maybe my voice wants me to be done. It's the weather. The weather in Vegas has been very weird. The notion that, hey, I could actually solve a problem and I'm only this old. These are things that do look great on the resume. But the most interesting thing, I think, when it comes to this sort of activity, this sort of effort, when you actually make a difference and people in your city, in your town, in your neighborhood, people around you know about it, it's almost like starting a big company and changing the world and getting rich, if that's your goal. But you can do that at any age. We're not actually saying, well, you have to be 21 to participate in what we're doing. You have to be interested in participating in what we're doing. And hopefully you're interesting as well. We don't have to worry about getting funding, or as long as you're willing to work for free, so are we. And we covered that in last week's episode of the money. So yeah, hopefully our role in this greater good will become more and more apparent this year and next year and into the future. And ideally, we'll find more and more people who see things that way and who are interested in elevating communities, making things better, whether it's here in Vegas or beyond. And they need not be in Vegas, although we would love to see the culture of innovation in Vegas become stronger through cultivation efforts by ourselves, maybe you and others. And that is where we're going to leave it for today. So thank you for listening as always. We'll catch you next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.